Growing up as a Christian and attending a Catholic high school, I've always been taught not to lose sight of my spiritual journey to better my relationship with God and my morality. Yet, like every other person in the world, I occasionally stray from my spiritual path. Every so often, I need a reminder to help put me back on the right track. While we were visiting Crystal Bridges, Thomas Cole's painting, View of Mount Etna, caught my eye. In the foreground of the painting, a shepherd plays a flute for his sheep while a large mountain looms in the distance. At first glance, I didn't see the ruins that lay underneath the vegetation. When I noticed the ruins, the mountain in the background became more inviting, and the painting seemed to take on a whole new meaning. Last summer, I went on a mission trip with my church youth group to the Navajo Reservation in Arizona. My group was assigned to work on a house that belonged to an elderly woman named Miss Annie. She lives with her husband in a tiny square house with 4 small rooms. Miss Annie is a very sweet woman. She has a kind heart and a loving spirit. We cleaned up Miss Annie's house, dusting and throwing out the garbage and dead animals that cluttered the corners. We replaced the ceiling, which was caving in. We roofed the house because our old roof had so many holes in it that there may as well have been nothing shielding them from the rain and harsh night winds. The most touching part of the trip for me was getting to know Miss Annie's granddaughters, Donnell and Kiana. We played with them, and together we all built a doghouse for Miss Annie's 3 dogs. We helped Donnell paint signs for her family's trailer and her grandmother's house. Although she is only 9 years old and very shy, Donnell is a talented artist. It was easy for me to see that she expressed herself best through her painting, and I could see that creativity caused her to be spiritually connected with something. We painted quietly, side by side. She would occasionally stop to discuss the uses of rocks and weeds to create designs in the paint. I showed her my methods, she showed me hers. She and I shared a connection through a common passion. She inspired me. She had learned from her grandmother. Miss Annie had one of the kindest hearts of anyone I had ever met, even though her day-to-day life was difficult. Coincidentally, Miss Annie lives next to a mountain similar to the one in View of Mount Etna, although much smaller. From a materialistic standpoint, Miss Annie lived in the ruins at the bottom of the mountain, but from a spiritual standpoint, she was living near the top. I learned a lot from Miss Annie and Donnell. Whenever I was about to complain about the heat during the summer, I remembered Miss Annie, living in the blazing heat of the desert with no air conditioning. When I was ready to groan because my shower was not hot enough, I remembered Miss Annie, who didn't even have running water. I would love to say that this mission trip changed me forever, and I never again lost sight of what is important. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I'm human. I often come back to value too highly my earthly goods, my ruins. The further up the mountain I climb, the easier it is to see the ruins which at one time I valued so greatly. Inevitably, I will tumble back down into them, then start climbing again. Contemplating the painting for just a few moments sets me back on the right path, looking up to the top of the mountain, to the place Miss Annie lives.